by transit, when planets move through the sky, they aspect positions in the natal chart. And I'm going to be talking about Trump's chart. I'm going to be showing his chart and also the possibilities of impeachment and how these things will be shown, the upcoming timing with the aspects by transit. So let's take a look at that. I'm going to bring up this chart here, which shows it shows Trump's chart on this side, and then the aspects, or the daily chart here, side by side here to it. So these are the transits, and this is Trump's chart. Now, we have him right now in this Jupiter Saturn. He started Jupiter Saturn at the beginning of 2019. It was actually the day that all of the new Congress was sworn in. That was the day of his Jupiter Saturn. That's when it started. And of course, that new Congress was Democratic. We had that wave of new House of Representatives that was sworn in at that time, and many of them were these women that had just been elected. So anyway, Jupiter Saturn is when that started, the first day of his Jupiter Saturn dasha. And so since then, it's been much more pressure, investigations. Now, of course, he got some good news when the Mueller report came out. There's been some very positive transits, especially with Jupiter going over his moon. You see, this is Jupiter in the transit chart. Jupiter's been going over his moon for this last year, starting in like October of last year. And it's still very close to his moon in Scorpio. Again, people, even though his moon is debilitated in Scorpio, it's in the fourth house, where it has what's called directional strength, and it's also very bright. So these are a couple of things that give strength to the moon. The debilitation of his moon is seen in his personality, his emotional nature. He's obviously very emotional, very thin-skinned, and this is shown with the Scorpio moon often. But he trusts his gut, he trusts his instincts. This is shown by the moon in the fourth. And also, it's very bright. So he winds up getting support, even though people are like, why do people give him support? Often it's because when the moon is very bright, we wind up getting a lot of support often. Again, when the moon is near the fourth house, we wind up really trusting our instincts and our gut. Again, so the debilitation is seen in that context. You don't want to just see things too simplistically. So this transit of Jupiter has been going over that moon in his fourth house. And as you see, it's getting closer and closer. It had gone retrograde and then back over. As you see, it's getting closer and closer to going over the moon, and also aspecting those planets in his 10th house as well, the sun Rahu in his 10th. Jupiter by aspect also hit Saturn and Venus, because Jupiter aspect over here earlier in the year, and also showed some grace flowing through his 12th house, because he's got Venus Saturn in the 12th house. Again, when Jupiter was going over here, there was a lot more. There was like the Michael Cohen things and the stuff with the Stormy Daniels and all like that. This is when Jupiter was going through Libra and also partly going through Virgo. So Jupiter, as it went through his fourth house and got closer to his moon Ketu, and also as it's closer to his sun Rahu, it's brought some relief, especially as it aspected the Venus sun, which was earlier this year, and those scandals kind of went away, the Jupiter aspect, because Trump's Venus Saturn in the 12th house shows this tendency to be deceptive, which is 12th house, with partners. Venus is the karaka of partners, and Saturn is the 7th house ruler. So this is why he's had a history of cheating on partners, lying to them, and misleading them. and having partnerships end, because both indicators of partner, that's Venus, which is the Karaka of partners, and Saturn, which is the 7th house ruler, are both in the 12th house. 12th house is secrets, deception, lying, and eventually loss or losing. And that includes losing money. So this is why he has that tendency. It's just built into his nature. But Jupiter aspect on Venus Saturn earlier in the year, and at least the problem he was probably having a lot more in his marriage with his wife or whatever, or even that we've seen publicly, sort of dissipated more. Again, that's shown by the aspect of Jupiter by transit earlier in the year. And so I'm mainly looking at this video. I want to refer to a couple things that are going to happen. Again, we see his current dashas are Jupiter, Saturn, Ketu. And I want to show this aspect of Ketu, this aspect by transit, of Saturn, aspect by transit onto his natal Jupiter. Now, he's got Jupiter retrograde in the 2nd house. Again, there are several indicators in Trump's chart, again, whether people like him or not, of not telling the truth, of flat out lying. 2 of them I just talked about, lying to partners, lying to others, is the Saturn Venus in the 12th. Okay, but also exaggerating and misleading and trying to confuse and obfuscate with words is shown by Jupiter in the 2nd house retrograde. Again, Jupiter in the 2nd house tends to exaggerate our speech. 2nd house is about speaking, speech. 2nd house is also about money and values. And you can see this exaggerated speech to get money. This is the kind of thing that leads to 6 bankruptcies. Oh, I got this great thing figured out, and let me get a bunch of investors to invest in my companies. But underneath it all, I don't really have the details straight, and I might be BSing quite a bit here along the way to get the thing I want, and then it gets reversed with bankruptcies and this kind of thing. So that tendency to this rambling, exaggerated speech and flat out lying and not telling the truth is clearly shown by Jupiter retrograde in the 2nd house. Exaggerated speech is Jupiter, which, again, exaggerated speech often is, if not a blatant lie, it's an exaggeration. And usually when people are exaggerating things, it's not good speech. It's not the truth. The truth is literal, and sometimes it's hard to hear. But people, even if they exaggerate the truth because they are trying to take care of your feelings and they're trying to be nice, that's also exaggerated speech, but it's also a lie if they're not telling the truth, especially if they know it's not telling the truth. Again, things can start to mount up, especially if they're not telling the truth because they want to get your money and then they want to invest your money. Again, there are layers of not telling the truth. He's got a lot of them here. So again, we see it all the time, this rambling speech that half the time it's not true. And language isn't used to tell the truth. Language is used to get what we want. That's when we have problems with the 2nd house. This is what winds up being the biggest problem. Sometimes we're just not aware that we're doing it because we're not telling the truth, again, because maybe we want to spare people's feelings. Maybe there's a lot of reasons why. But what winds up happening is if we keep not telling the truth so much, the biggest person we're not telling the truth to is ourselves. And then we don't even know what the truth is anymore. And then we have no idea why people are responding to us the way they are. I'm saying this just in general as a 2nd house problem. In general, as a 2nd house problem, we can be not telling ourselves the truth and then not realizing that we're not being honest with others, and people stop trusting what we say because we're exaggerating all the time. Okay. So again, this is just a problem with 2nd house. When you have a retrograde planet in the 2nd house, it can often show where we're not truthful with ourselves. So we wind up not speaking the truth to others. Again, when it's Jupiter, we do it by overdoing it because Jupiter overdoes it. Jupiter is also the 8th lord for a Leo person. We have to always remember that. Jupiter is primarily the 8th house ruler for a Leo. It's also the 5th house ruler, which means it can lead to growth, it can lead to creativity, and it can lead to wealth. So again, his ability to, quote, I'm just going to say bullshit or BS, Again, Jupiter in the second can be BS. It definitely can. And Leos can have a tendency to do that anyway, because the second house ruler, Mercury, is also the 11th house ruler. So they can tend to exaggerate anyway a little bit. So having Jupiter there, retrograde, and also the 8th lord can show this capacity to kind of conflate and make a lot of big proclamations and benefit from it. Literally benefit from it, because Jupiter is a functional benefic. It's literally the 5th house ruler. So these are just tendencies that he has, and it's brought great benefit to him at different times in his life, for sure. Okay. Now, so we have this aspect. One of the main aspects I wanted to focus on here, again, but the karma of these things come due. Okay. And he's in Jupiter Dasha right now. And again, I said this after the election, that in many ways, his Rahu Mars was, at least the way he felt, he probably felt the best he's going to feel in his life to some extent. Now, again, you could say, well, he's president now. Of course he feels better than he did when he was winning the campaign. But think about it. When he was winning the campaign, he's just the center of the universe, saying whatever he wants at rallies all the time. No one telling him what to do. He can do whatever he wants. He's competing. He's winning. He's calling out crooked Hillary, lock her up, nothing but adulation all around him. Now, of course, he's got people sniping at him, but him in his lived experience every day of going around, standing up, people cheering, lock her up and make America great and build the wall, and who's going to pay for it? Mexico. Was having the time of his life. Once you become president, all of a sudden, at least half the world's against you, half the country. Now it's constantly, no, you can't do this. No, you can't do that. No, you can't do this. No, you can't do that. That was the beginning. That was Jupiter. Now it's in Jupiter Saturn. It's even more of that. It's the consequences of Jupiter. I said this when he was elected, that it's going to be that not just him, but the whole country now is going to get the consequences of this Jupiter retrograde, 5th and 8th lord in the second. Now the whole country is going to get the karma of his Jupiter Dasha, which is retrograde 2nd and 8th. Retrograde 5th and 8th lord in the second. So now the whole country is getting the karma of this to some extent, which is all of these things he says, behind the scenes. He doesn't bother to figure out how the details work, how it works. So now we're seeing this impeachment thing come after a whistleblower comes and exposes him. Again, all this 12th house energy. This is also 12th house. This whole whistleblower thing. Jupiter is also aspecting the Saturn Venus in the 12th house, but it's also going over this moon Ketu in Scorpio, which is also about secrets. But a couple other things, and I said this before. His Jupiter Dasha also rules Saturn Venus in the 12th house because they're in Punarvasu Nakshatra. So this Jupiter was going to be a time when all these secrets are exposed. And Jupiter is also the legal system and legal problems. Again, he's fighting like hell to try to keep most of his secrets literally secret. For example, his taxes. And what are taxes? Taxes are actually related to the 8th house as well. And Jupiter is the 8th house ruler. So he fights really hard to keep his taxes under wraps because that's going to show all of his financial entanglements, which will probably show financial entanglements in these countries. Perhaps Turkey. I have a feeling that this sudden thing with Turkey, that Erdogan has some dirt on him. This is what I think. I think it's going to be, it'll come out. Anyway, but one of the main aspects by transit that I wanted to show also was Saturn. Saturn's aspect by transit. Saturn is at 20 degrees of Sagittarius right now. This is the transit chart. And Jupiter in his chart is 24. And Saturn is moving right up on the exact aspect by transit to his Jupiter. Now, again, Saturn aspects 3 houses in front, which is also aspecting his 7th house. And Saturn aspects his 10th house. Oh, I'm sorry, Saturn aspects 10th houses from himself, which is the sign of Virgo. And in this case, it's now aspecting 20 degrees of Virgo, Saturn is, but as Saturn keeps moving forward, it's going to pass right over this 24-20, which is where his Jupiter, his retrograde Jupiter in the 2nd house is. So Saturn's aspect by transit is going to hit the exact degree of his retrograde Jupiter in the second house. So I'll run this forward by week and we'll see. Right now, this is set to October 13th. And this is let's see. I'm sorry, let me get this here. Okay, so we have this going forward. This is early November. Now look, you just noticed Jupiter went in the first house here. And so again, I'm going to talk about Jupiter shifting here as well. But we see a couple aspects are going to happen. First, we have, notice here in the middle end of November. End of November, we got Saturn at 23 and casting this 10th house aspect onto his Jupiter in the second. But we also have Jupiter at 4 degrees casting an aspect on his ascendant and his Mars. So I think what we're seeing here, I mean, there's going to be an impeachment. There's no question. I mean, he's going to be impeached. There's just forget any question. Again, you have to understand what impeachment is. It's sad that so many Americans don't. The House is going to pass articles of impeachment. That is it. Trump will be one of the presidents that have been impeached. The last president that was impeached was Bill Clinton. Bill Clinton was also impeached. Articles of impeachment were drafted and passed in the House. Then they go to the Senate, and the Senate votes on it and decides whether or not to remove him from office. Okay? The reason Nixon resigned is because the Republicans in the Senate said, you need to resign or you're going to be removed from office. Okay? That's what happened. So again, he is going to be impeached. You can see this happening with this Saturn crunching up to his retrograde Jupiter in the second house. It's showing the results of this karma, of this Jupiter retrograde in his natal chart, and this dishonest, secretive nature. Saturn is coming up, and it's going to be the impeachment. When he went into Jupiter Saturn earlier this year, I said, it's big stuff's going to happen. I thought it would be more with Mueller, but he wound up appointing this, Bill Barr, and they really obscured the Mueller report. And Mueller never looked beyond his purview. Mueller stayed straight arrow. He never looked into financial stuff. He knew right away he wasn't going to go beyond the Justice Department suggestion that a president can't be indicted. So Mueller never even went there. But what Mueller did return showed very clearly that they could have opened impeachment inquiry into obstruction of justice. That's very clear. So this is going to happen because of what we already know about with the whistleblower and the Ukrainian president and whatnot. But I also see this Jupiter going into his first house, casting this aspect on his ascendant, showing a lot of grace. Now it's going to be going through this fifth house the entire time and through next year. So through next year, and that includes even the 2020 election, Jupiter is going to be going through his fifth house. Saturn will be going through his sixth house. I'll do an update later when we get near election and stuff like that to see what may happen with the with whoever the opponent is or whatever. But here's the thing: I think especially around the end of this year, around the end of November and into early December, this is when we're going to see articles of impeachment voted on. I think around this time, I think before Saturn goes into Capricorn, I think it's going to be end of November, early December, 2355, 2430. So even right around here, this is early December. I think we'll see articles of impeachment voted on in the House. Now, again, here's one of the things I would say. He's going to have a much better, here's what I would say, if the House wants to ensure a better possibility of impeachment actually getting him out of office, let's say, they should wait until Jupiter clears this exact aspect to his ascendant, which would be in mid-December, right? So they should keep gathering evidence and not be in a hurry, which seems to make sense anyway, because it seems the longer they wait, the more the roaches are coming out from underneath the rocks. And not to mention, he's losing all kinds of support because of abandoning the Kurds in Syria, and it looks so suspicious and fishy that Erdogan wanted him to do this last year. This is why General Mattis quit. He wanted him to do it last year. Probably what happened. My feeling is behind the scenes, Erdogan pressured him. I think Erdogan has dirt on him because of all his business dealings in Turkey. Look, his family has been doing business all around the world for decades, and we know nothing about it. No disclosure, no financial statements, no tax returns, nothing, so we can see the financial entanglements that he has in Turkey. We don't know what they've done to get those permit, whatever it was. Okay, Erdogan, I believe, has something on him and has leverage over him. I'm not saying it's blackmailable, but just embarrassing stuff, perhaps. I definitely think Putin does, the way he acts. But all of a sudden, you get one phone call from Erdogan over the weekend, and the next day you're saying, okay, we're pulling all of our troops out. Okay, I'll do it now. He tried to do it last year, and he did it, and Mattis quit, and he was descended upon by the Republicans and said, don't do this. It's going to be the biggest mistake of your presidency. So Trump didn't do it. Now, a year later, Erdogan is probably saying, okay, I've had enough. Maybe not, but it looks very suspicious. That one phone call, and Trump is like, okay, I'll pull him out. So anyway, we could see those disclosures. But aside from that, what this has done means that a lot of the Republican cover, which is the only thing keeping him in power in this sense, is getting very weak in the Congress. He's also very much getting descended upon by Fox News. Even people like Tucker Carlson are saying, there's no way to spin this. This was wrong to pressure the leader of a foreign country to dig up dirt on your political opponent. This is illegal. It's a crime. All this no quid pro quo, that's spin. There doesn't need to be quid pro quo. If I ask you to commit a crime, whether you do it or not, I'm culpable. If I ask you to do something that's illegal, like dig up dirt on my political opponent in order to get the aid that you were promised, even if it wasn't in order to get the aid you were promised, even if it was just to do it, the ask itself is the crime. This is pretty, it's at least a cut and dry case to be able to impeach. There's no question about it that there's at least a legitimate point to do that. Even reasonable Fox News hosts, which there are some of them, say this. Reasonable Republicans say this. We don't want the president doing this. It's not in our country's interest. It's in his personal interest. And it's not about corruption. This is why he also had them look into Elizabeth Warren. What does Elizabeth Warren have to do with anything? So anyway, without legislating all this, because then people get their hair starts to get on fire and their head explodes when I just speak truth and common sense. So aside from that, you can see the clock ticking. I'm saying this because the Democrats should slow roll this, and they should take their time and keep gathering evidence and subpoenas and bringing people forward into the middle of in the middle of December, when Jupiter passes this exact aspect onto Trump's ascendant and his Mars. Because Trump is going to get a shot in the arm in early November when Jupiter goes into Sagittarius. So Jupiter going into Sagittarius in early November, there will probably be some benefit here. It will probably be some. There's Jupiter conferring grace here onto his Mars and onto his ascendant, which could be the legal. He could have there could be a legal ruling in his favor. All of the lawsuits against him, he could get something legal in the courts, like he's trying to block subpoenas and stopping people from testifying because he's saying that it's unconstitutional, which it's not. There's nothing in the Constitution that says that the House needs to open a formal vote in order to open an impeachment inquiry. Although I agree, it's a political, I agree that the Democrats, it's somewhat dirty politics for Nancy Pelosi to just open the impeachment inquiry without having a vote to open impeachment inquiry and giving Republicans power of subpoena and all that. It's a legitimate point. It's bad. It's dirty politics to some extent, for sure. But let's say this, it's not constitutional. They don't have to do it. And by the way, it's about time the Democrats, I guess, started playing dirty, because God knows the Republicans have constantly in their oversight in the Senate, also when they had oversight in the House. And also Trump is hardly one to start quoting the Constitution and violating norms. It wasn't a constitutional, it's not their constitutional duty, but it's a norm. It's a norm. It's a sort of decorum and a norm to have a formal impeachment vote so that you give the other side equal power to subpoena, but it's not a law. And by the way, just like it's a norm for presidents to show their taxes, just like it's a norm for people to cooperate with a subpoena, whether there's a formal impeachment inquiry or not. And again, go back and look at Lindsey Graham and what he said about impeachable offenses with Bill Clinton. Lindsey Graham flat out said, Bill Clinton, it doesn't matter if he lied to the grand jury or not, his conduct in the office itself was impeachable, which means the sex act and all that. Go back and look at Pompeo about what he said when Obama didn't just hand over every document that was subpoenaed. So again, there's hypocrisy all over the place. This is why I don't like any of them. I'm talking about the process, okay? Yeah, Democrats are playing a little dirty pool here. Maybe Trump, what I'm saying with the legal, maybe he'll get a legal ruling in his favor. I don't know if it'll be that, because it's not constitutional. It's not literally in the Constitution. But Jupiter going into his fifth house in November, early November, is showing this aspect onto his ascendant and Mars. So again, something will turn in his favor, maybe a legal proceeding. This is why I'm saying, if the Democrats have already filed articles of impeachment at this time, if they've already voted on impeachment in early November, then I think this thing that goes in Trump's favor could very well be the Republicans voting against impeachment. That could be the benefit, the Jupiter benefit to him. And it could be a big benefit. So this is how these things work. Again, I'll just give you, this is also a thing about making predictions. People always say they expect astrologers should be fortune tellers. There's a lot that can happen. What you're looking at is you're looking at possibilities. I'm looking at possibilities. So when people get readings, for example, it's in context. Like if this was the Democrats getting a reading, I would tell them, don't do the articles of impeachment. Don't vote on impeachment until after Jupiter clears his ascendant. That's what I would tell them. And I would tell them to wait until the middle of December, because then Jupiter is past his ascendant. And yes, it might look like he's winning for about 2 or 3 weeks earlier in November as Jupiter goes in his first house. But don't file the articles until later, right? Because then Jupiter's moved past his ascendant. If they do it before that, Trump is set up to get a boon. Let the boon be something else, not being acquitted in the Senate. So maybe it'll be a court thing, or it'll be something else. He gets some good news. Maybe the good news is that some dirt comes out about Biden and Hunter Biden, or whatever it is. I don't know. Some good news will happen. It could be something legal. Maybe it's another legal thing that doesn't have to do with impeachment. Maybe it's some legal thing because he's in all kinds of trouble. Maybe he gets maybe one of these appeals for his taxes gets rendered in his favor or something. It could be a lot of things. So, but I'm showing this to just show the timing of things and to show these aspects by transit and how they're happening right now. So Saturn is going up to 22. His natal Jupiter is at 24. And again, this is the karma of his Jupiter in the second. And now the country is being dragged through his Jupiter in the second. And by the way, this is the biggest reason, one of the biggest reasons why I said, no, I don't want him to win. Because he's about to go into this Jupiter dasha. And his Jupiter is a mess. It's retrograde in the second. It's this person who bankrupted all these companies. It's this person who can't speak, who doesn't speak the truth. And he's going to be getting the karma of that in his Jupiter dasha. And if he's getting the karma of that, the whole country is getting the karma of that, and maybe the whole world of his Jupiter. And I'm like, no, I don't want that. And here we're getting it, of course, not to mention all the legal problems. His presidency has been just, it is dealing with his retrograde Jupiter, his audacious speech, his exaggerated, his demagoguery. You know, he just did a rally where he's just cussing at will. I mean, this is just, I don't care what you think of him, if you like his policies or you'd like him or whatever. I mean, can you really be proud of him standing up saying Joe Biden is nothing except for he, you know, learned how to kiss Barack Obama's ass? Are you really proud of this man if he's your guy? Oh, yeah, it's so funny. I mean, okay, great. But I mean, this is just going to continue. By the way, I want to also back up a little bit and say, remember, I said not too long ago that if you think he's bad, if you think he was being bad before, just wait, because Rahu is entering Ardra Nakshatra, and it's moving right up to his natal Mercury. Go back to the video I did a month ago when I said Rahu about to go into Ardra, and it's going to enter, it's going to go right over Trump's Mercury. This was before all this stuff blew up. It was before all of this blew up. Again, and I said, if you think he's been bad before with his speech and with just craziness, you wait. Because Rahu is about to go right over his Mercury to the exact degree. And we can see here in the middle of November as well, Rahu is like just past it. So again, it's this simultaneous. Let's go here. So this is in early November, November 10th, Rahu is like right on his Mercury. But again, it's still going to be hovering right around it even for months after. It's still within a couple degrees. But again, this Rahu going over his Mercury is also showing what we're seeing now as it gets up closer and closer to it. Speech, again, Mercury, because Mercury is speech, and Mercury is the second house ruler, the second and 11th house ruler, which gives Leos that exaggerated speech anyway. And it's the ruler of this Jupiter dasha, or this Jupiter, and he's in the Jupiter dasha. So these aspects by transit are big in, as far as the timing right now of what I'm saying, of what I'm talking about. And so this, you know, he's also, so he's also going to go into Jupiter, Saturn, Venus dasha. So when we look at Venus, you know, Venus is definitely more powerful than the Ketu, I would say, because Ketu is just ruling this debilitated moon. I'm sorry, it's given the results of this debilitated moon in Scorpio. So this Jupiter, Saturn, Ketu, this has not been a good subcycle here that just started. Jupiter, Saturn, Ketu, for sure, as we can see. This is not very good at all. He's going to get some improvement in Jupiter, Saturn, Venus again. So again, we see these things that I would tell the Democrats, wait until the middle of December, but he's going to get Jupiter, Saturn, Venus, which is a little bit of an improvement over Jupiter, Saturn, Ketu in the dasha sequence. But it's kind of, you know, I don't know, I would still tell him to wait. And I say it's an improvement because it's the ruler of this sun, Rahu, in the 10th. But again, it's also, again, it's a ruler of sun, Rahu, so it can also show this eclipse where he's getting eclipsed. So Venus is also a functional malefic. So again, it's kind of, I'm not thrilled about it if I was counseling him, but all things considered, you know, the biggest reason I wanted to make this video was to show, literally, aside from my predictions, because these things are always tricky. The important thing is to show you how it's working. This is the stuff, this is how you see karma's ripening. You see it this way. You see these dashas, Jupiter, Saturn. He's now in Jupiter, Saturn. And you see these transits lining up. Saturn right on this aspect by transit. This is a huge thing. And most astrologers, I don't know, I mean, again, I'm not trying to blow my own horn here, but I don't know other astrologers that even really teach or emphasize aspects by transit. Planets in the sky, aspecting natal positions. This has been a foundation of my practice since I started. And I'm teaching this also at the Sedona Vedic Astrology Conference. I just put a link there. If you are thinking of going, you should go, because I'm doing a course on this aspect by transit. These aspects by transit, because this is how you see it show up. Look at how these things, it's so specific. Jupiter in the sky, I'm sorry, Saturn in the sky has been going back and forth over his Jupiter in this here since early 2017. We also had K2 go over it. So he's been but of course K2 is aspecting it. But Saturn has been aspecting by wide degree, off and on, this Jupiter in his second house since 2017, since he took office. Now it's really grinding over it for the last time. And, Saturn will often hit a certain point 3 times. He goes up to it. Sometimes he goes back over it. Then he goes over it again. So Saturn is now hitting the last time through in early December. As we see here, 2355, the next week, 2439. So it's this first week in December. That's the time to really do it, like December 1st or 2nd or something like that. Find a muhurta here. Something around here. Oh, this is Purnima. This is a full moon. No. What is this? Why is this saying porn? Oh, this is the full moon. Okay. This is the Panchanga for this chart. Yeah. So somewhere around here, as Jupiter, like here you see 24. This is really the time, the screws on there. But yeah, again, I would actually wait, because if he did it here, then Jupiter is in the exact aspect to his ascendant. So again, I would wait. I would let the transit pass. Yeah, here's 2426, and Jupiter is at 646. Look at this, exact. I mean, just look at how exact this is. Saturn 2426, and Jupiter 646, right on his ascendant. So again, this could very well mean these early days of December, like December 1st, 2nd through the 6th. I mean, I think this is when you're going to see some major, maybe these votes will happen in the Senate or something. I think what will probably happen is the Republicans will file the impeachment beforehand. And this could very well be when he's either vindicated or where they're doing the vote. Do we hold him to account for his words, which is Saturn aspecting his Jupiter retrograde, or do we let him off, which is Jupiter giving him the grace? So this time in early December, watch and see what happens. And boy, I don't know, man. I have never been one who thought that, well, they'll never do it in the Senate. Well, they'll never pass articles of impeachment in the Senate. I don't know if I think that's true. I also don't think it's true that it would necessarily be a bad thing even for Democrats in the election. Because again, you're going to have to get all these senators on record. They're going to have to say something. It doesn't take that many to flip. It would take about 10 of them, 11 of them. And there are people, everybody knows, are have deep problems with him. Not just because of what just happened in Turkey and the damage that it's done to the U.S. word around the world, but just this degrading of the institution. And they would have voted him. They would have thrown him over the cliff years ago, except for his voters and his quote base. But they also realize he is toxic, and they have this election coming, and everyone in the Senate, they're all about their own interest, and that includes holding on to their own personal power and also their party. And if they think he's going to be a drag on the ticket, and that he's not going to be good for them winning in 2020, they have a perfect opportunity to vote him out at that point. And they might do it. And so this is a fascinating case study in how this might go. And I'm not sure at this point. You know, by the way, I don't profess this idea, oh, I know everything, and everything in these predictions. Man, these things are tight. These things are close because there's so many variables. These things could happen, you know, they can cut either way. When you see things that are this close, you see it being this close in the astrology as well. I would say that I say the longer they wait, the better the chances are that the verdict is not good for him. Because this is why I'm saying if I were Democrats, I would say wait. And even let the impeachment procedure drag into next year. Who cares? Let it drag on and bring these people forward. The longer it drags on, the more benefit it is to the Democrats. Again, they keep acting like, well, we got to do it quick. Can't let it drag into next year. We want it to be quick. And again, the quicker it is, the more it benefits him, more it benefits Trump. Especially, you could see this astrologically with Jupiter going into his fifth house and clearing this aspect to his lagna. That's what we're looking at. I wanted to clear that so that he doesn't benefit from that Jupiter aspect. As it does that, then what happens is Jupiter, again, you can see now Jupiter separates and then it gets closer to Ketu. Look, all this time here, Jupiter, Ketu getting close. This is not going to benefit him very much at all because now this Jupiter in his fifth house is getting Ketu, and Ketu in Sagittarius is saying justice, 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 truth, truth, truth. Ketu Jupiter is making the truth more narrow and narrow and narrow and narrow and narrowing in on the truth, zeroing in on the truth. And now, but look, now we're here at the end of the year, maybe dragging into next year. Now look, you got Jupiter Ketu, even that eclipse. Well, no, this isn't an eclipse, or oh yeah, this is the solar eclipse that happens around Christmas. Again, let this stuff happen. Let it happen. Again, let it go for a while. You know, the Watergate impeachment went on for quite a while. The inquiry process went on for a couple of years. Again, let it go, let it go. And so the more it gets into this part, he gets weaker and weaker. Absolutely. Because now Jupiter is not aspecting his ascendant. And now Ketu Jupiter in Sagittarius is like, and the vice just gets tighter and tighter, especially since Saturn is still in Sagittarius. All these planets in Sagittarius, whether him or not, we're going to see justice. Once Jupiter goes into Sagittarius, gets closer to Ketu, Saturn is there, we're going to start to see justice and the truth revealed much more. That's what's going to be happening with all these planets in Sagittarius. So I wanted to show these aspects by transit mainly as they show these aspects by transit lining up in his chart. Saturn aspecting his Jupiter by transit, and then Jupiter about to aspect his Mars lagna. So yeah, anyway, that's what I want to do. That's what I've been looking at some of these things, and again, we also have this conference coming up. One second, and I wanted to show these are the kinds of things I'm going to be talking about in my aspects by transit course that I'm teaching there, and I'm also teaching a course on Tajika, which is also very powerful aspect work. I'm doing a workshop, so if you're going to the Sedona conference, check it out. If you're not, then you should come and attend those lectures. You should come to the Sedona conference if you can. It's a great experience to meet in person, to meet around, to meet all these other great students. Again, I'm teaching 8 hours of classes, and it'd be great to see you. I also have a table there and whatnot. But I think this will be something that, this will be a great opportunity to really see these things play out. I've had a great time doing the or I've been, focusing on these aspects by transit since I started my, research. And again, when you consider these things, when you look at the dasha cycles, what the planets rule, their nature as forming yogas, their occupation in the chart, all of the qualities of what the dashas rule and what gets activated, and then you align that with the transits, including the aspects by transit like this, you see remarkable things happen. So it's not surprising that in these next few months, you're seeing the culmination and the karma of his Jupiter in the second house. And now that he's president, we're all getting dragged through it. Like I said, this is what I was worried about when he became president, because I saw this Jupiter. He's about to start Jupiter Dasha. Now we're all going to go through his Jupiter Dasha, or at least this first part of it. And it's very clear from his chart, of course, that his Jupiter, again, it's this retrograde in the second, this exaggerated speech that is giving them benefit because it's given him investors before and all, but also bankruptcies and exaggerations and not being truthful, distortions. And now we're all, and also legal problems that come from all of that. We're all getting dragged through it now. So we're seeing a lot of this culminate here. Anyway, so I hope this is helpful for people to see. And Mahina said, amazing. Yeah, it's incredible. It's amazing the specificity of this, especially with the dashas as well. It's Jupiter, Saturn dasha, Saturn aspecting Jupiter. Again, it's just nailed down once you get these principles right. It's all happening in Jupiter, Saturn as well. You even see, Jupiter is the 5th and the 8th house ruler. Saturn is the 7th and the 6th house ruler. So now his enemies are just descending on him. When he went into Jupiter, Saturn, I was like, boy, Saturn is not just, Saturn is not just in general a difficult planet. It's his 6th lord. And it shows how Leos can tend to make enemies, especially when they abuse their power and authority. That's the nature of Saturn for Leo. It pulls them down off of their mighty throne, because the enemies they make by the potential of being this kind of haughty, sort of king. That's the nature of Saturn for Leo. That's how it humbles them. Leos get humbled by Saturn. And boy, we're seeing it. Maybe for the first time in his life, he's got a whole army of people saying no, no, no. A whole Congress of people saying no. And we're seeing that Saturn now aspecting the Jupiter saying, and we're going to hold you to account for your rambling speech and your distortion of fact and your exaggerations and your behind the scenes dealing for your own personal gain. Again, this is the same instinct that got him all those bankruptcies and getting all these people to invest money in him. Oh, I got these casinos, I got this, I got that. And it's just a lot of hot air. This is why he wasn't able to get loans anymore after a while, after the mid-90s, except for in like Russia and Deutsche Bank. Those were the only people that would give him money, that would give him credit. Again, this isn't my opinion. This is just a matter of public record, but it's also the reason he doesn't want people to see his tax returns. Why do you think he's so protective of his tax returns? And he just constantly lies about it, and he's able to get away with it. Because there's enough people that are just like, oh, well, who cares? Well, all right. But this is all shown in the chart. And again, this is the stuff I'm talking about with that Jupiter retrograde in the second house. He's able to get by with it, but we're all bearing the brunt of the karma now that he's president. We're all having to deal with it. And so just looking at a few of these comments, it says, I know about it. What I don't like is the fundamental attitude that everything is bad. It's not. Oh, okay. I'm not sure what that's about. So, all right. So there's just conversations going on. So Amy says it's karma, plain and simple. Yeah, absolutely. It's karma, plain and simple. Absolutely. We see it very clearly. This is why, and it's very neutral. And again, I just speak about these things as plainly as I can see them, right? I mean, he's okay for who he is. The problem is he stepped out of his lane. He should have just stayed a TV personality or whatever, but he wanted more power. And now when you get this much power, you have more responsibility with this much power, because now it's not just you bankrupting a company or your family or whatever it is that you're doing when you're a citizen. Now your karma is dragging all of us into this. So now we have a right to get upset about you not speaking the truth or whatever and doing these kinds of things, because we have institutions, and maybe you don't mind eroding them, but we mind. We mind you eroding the institutions that allow for some kind of, civil discourse and legality, so that our country is being prioritized, not your personal business or your political vendettas or whatever else it is. So when you step out of your lane like that, then you get this karma. And again, I knew it when it happened. I knew when he wound up winning, even while that campaign was going on. I said, he's at the height of his power right now. He's never going to enjoy life more than what's happening right now when he's winning. And he was in Rahu Mars Dasha. And I said, this is as happy as he's ever going to be. Because now what's happening, because in Rahu Mars, he was just out there, again, on stage and da-da-da. Okay, maybe he has more power now, quote, literally, but does he really? Day to day, he's nothing but being curtailed. Why do you think he's always reliving the good old days? Remember the good old days? Remember the good old days when I won, when I beat all those Republicans, and I won and I beat them, and hey, let's revisit the good old days. Come on, lock her up, crooked Hillary, my election victory, largest crowd ever, blah, blah, blah. Why? Because those were the good old days. Now he's president. You'd think these would be the good old days where he could do something. But now it's just, my cabinet doesn't let me do anything. The Congress doesn't let me do anything. Literally, he was a king before he became president. He wants to be a king now, and there's nothing but laws stopping him from being a king. When he was campaigning and he was, little Marco and low energy Jeb and Lion Ted and rallies and he was king. I'll do whatever the hell I want. That's what it was. I can do there and I can act, do whatever I want. People love it. And he had just constant people to fight with and all, and he was, yay. Now it's, again, even though he's got the power day to day, he doesn't have the autonomy that he used to have. So I knew when he went into, I knew when he was going in Jupiter, I was like, boy, this isn't going to be good, because there's going to be legal problems is the biggest thing I said. All his legal problems and his exaggerated speech and this is what we're going to be dragged through during his presidency. So just leaving it at that here. I think that's enough for this. It was mainly, he's a great case study for this, especially these aspects by transit, aligned with dashas as well. We can see this like, bam, it's so specific. And I'm not sure you get to see this kind of case study all the time. Ann says he's self-impeaching. Yeah, I mean, to some extent. Look, again, I don't want to be so personally nasty or whatever, but again, one of the things is he's just not very bright, especially at this point in his life. It looks like he's definitely mentally declining. He'll come out self-impeaching, absolutely. I mean, standing and again, his strategy has always been double down, triple down, blame the other person, right? I'm not the one who's corrupt; they're corrupt. Oh yeah. I'm not only going to ask the president of Ukraine to invite Joe Biden. Hey, China, why don't you investigate Joe Biden as well? What? Okay, right. And again, because he's never had consequences, he's like, no, there's no consequences for anything I say or do. Yeah, you think this is bad? How about this? And again, we now have laws. This is called self-impeaching. We can see by his own conduct what's going on. We can see by that this is just not, we don't need the whistleblower complaint anymore. It's like, what about this? But what you're seeing now, and the reason they should go slow is because the mass corruption that I think is being uncovered needs to come out. They need to take it slow. We need to know what Pompeo is doing. Pompeo trying to prevent these diplomats from testifying. Pompeo was on that call. There's a cover-up going on. I think it's very clear. Rudy Giuliani, why is Rudy Giuliani doing anything in our government's official business? Yes, he has the right to have a personal liaison, but after you fire an ambassador, dig up dirt on this ambassador, or you remove her from her position, and having to clear things through Rudy Giuliani, who's Trump's personal attorney, who's come out, again, he's another one who is self-incriminating, saying, yeah, I went to Ukraine and talked to them about digging up dirt on Joe Biden. Yeah, I did it. What? This isn't part of our government. And again, people, the citizens should be saying, wait a second. You know, the State Department, which is Pompeo, he's supposed to be this. These are supposed to be the diplomats that go around and keep peace with us in the world. And these people are running these covert operations to help the president get reelected and hanging on and holding up legally, apportioned, financial aid so they can fight off Russia on their eastern border, conditioning that upon them digging up dirt or inventing dirt on a political opponent. This is the height of double dealing and corruption, and what they had in mind in the Constitution about foreign countries influencing our elections and corrupting our leaders. This isn't complicated. And every Republican in the Senate, every Republican who is covering for him knows it. So again, the longer they drag this out, though, and the more they bring Pompeo, what is he doing? What about all these diplomats that have left? John Bolton. Let's get him before the impeachment. What about other ones who had left before? Rex Tillerson. What about, what was his name? The previous DNI, Dan Coates. Dan Coates resigned right before all this stuff happened. What's going on with that? Right? So there's, and Attorney General Barr into it up to his neck. So these cover-ups and all this stuff is just, there's so much going on. And someone said here, and by the way, I also said, if you remember back a while ago, I said he might just resign. And that could easily be what happens at some point. There's no question. There could be just resignation, like, okay. And maybe that's the Jupiter going over his ascendant as well. That could be the case. Me saying that he's going to get a benefit, maybe that's the legal action. It could very well happen. The wheels could come off the cart very quickly as well. We could have some bombshell disclosures. Who knows what could come out now? Now that we see the level, there could be absolute bombshells come out where no member of Congress could ever justify. Like there could be a recording of something else. Who knows what could come out, especially with Rahu going over his Mercury. I said this before. But where every Republican says, that's it, the game is over. I mean, this thing in Syria is at the point where Republicans are not going to defend him now. It's going to be very hard. It will be very hard. But let's say there's another just catastrophic bombshell disclosure with proof and other things that come out, other kinds of corruption, maybe even with Pompeo or something like that. They could maybe just, or with Pence or something, where they just go, look, the game is up. We cannot, if articles of impeachment are voted on in the House, you are getting voted out. And this is the Nixon moment, and you need to leave. And by the way, they will float that. I also think this. I think Nancy Pelosi is she's cautious. She, in many ways, too cautious. But I don't think she's going to bring up articles of impeachment to even be voted on until she knows that the Senate would perhaps also vote to impeach in the Senate. I think that's what she's going to do. I think she's going to hold her cards and let it drag out because now they want to win it. And that's the best thing about opening the articles of impeachment is they're not going to open up the articles of impeachment because they want to lose. They're opening the articles of impeachment because they want to win, and they're going to keep going with it. They're going to keep going with it. I see we have someone who's deep state, Nancy Pelosi from deep state. You don't even know what deep state is. Deep state is just the government officials that have worked there. I'll tell you who was deep state. Deep state was the ambassador that was just let go after 23 years. That's really what deep state is. And intelligence agencies and intelligence agents that work for decades. Yes, there's definitely covert mechanisms behind the scenes and whatnot. But again, this whole deep state, just repeating this stuff, you know, Nancy Pelosi is about as transparent as you can get. Again, you don't even know what you're saying here. I'm sorry, but I'm just going to call it out. That you're just saying anything is deep state, whatever that even means. And you saying it like that shows you don't really know. She's as deep state as Donald Trump is. Okay, so just, that's not even what's referred to when they talk about the deep state. So again, are there career diplomats and intelligence agencies that do things that we don't know about? Absolutely. And a lot of it is disgusting and loathsome, and some of it, much of it, and in fact, probably even most of it, is what also keeps us protected from terrorists and all other kinds of things that the public doesn't know about because they keep this stuff classified. And so again, this whole deep state stuff that everybody is, again, I've been studying, I've been tuned into this stuff since the mid 80s. What's happening now is you have these newly woke people on the right and left now who they have these, because they've just recently discovered that things aren't what they've seen, which I've noticed. I've known this for decades about Federal Reserve. If you want to see how this stuff works, go down the rabbit hole. Don't just listen to Trump and his conspiracy theories or QAnon and all of that, because that is nonsense. If you want to really know how it works, like everything, you need to use your brain and investigate it. People that listen to Trump because he calls Pelosi deep state or whatever, you're just part of the problem. I'm sorry, but I'm just going to say it. So anyway, the point of the matter is, at this point, it could very easily happen where Pelosi is going to wait. And one of the things she said one time was, I'm no fan of any of them. I don't like any of them. They're all politicians doing their thing. But one of the things she said is, one of the things you learn is how to count. And what this means is how to not bring up a vote unless you know you're going to win. Now, this is what Mitch McConnell does all the time in the Senate. Nancy Pelosi, I don't think is going to even vote on articles of impeachment. That's why they didn't have the vote now. It's a total political move. Like I said earlier, the Democrats are playing politics right now. They're playing politics. Okay, Trump and the Republicans do nothing but play politics. So they're not bringing it up to a vote now because she doesn't want to get Democrats on record. They would win the impeachment inquiry, but then she's got to put all these Democrats on record who are in these close districts, and she doesn't want to do it, and she doesn't need to do it, so she's not doing it. That's all. Simple. Okay, you've been gained now, Republicans, because Nancy Pelosi's playing politics. Welcome to the world of politics. But the point is, they're not going to vote actually on articles of impeachment, I don't think, in the House until Pelosi already knows there's enough in the Senate to convict. This is what I think. This is what they should do, and I think that's what they will do. Or at some point when the strategy isn't working out anymore. But I don't think they're in any hurry right now, and they shouldn't be. And I think what could easily happen, and what they're already seeing, is God knows where this is going to lead right now, and who knows what this is going to look like in a month or two from now, when we find out more about what Pompeo was doing, and Barr, and all these other people come out. There could be a nice little White House visit from Lindsey Graham and Mitch McConnell, who says, Mr. President, it's time to go. Because that's what happened with Richard Nixon. That's what happened. And it's like, Mr. President, it's not only time for you to go, but you want your kids to be free, right? You want Don Jr. and, Ivanka and all that. It's time to go. And maybe that's the Jupiter aspect, his ascendant. Maybe that's the grace, the Jupiter-Mars aspect, the ascendant that I talked about. That would be nice. Because, yeah, this thing could unravel really quick. And who knows, in the next month, again, it could very well happen. So if the wheels come off the apple cart really quick in the next month and you start seeing all this, then maybe that boon that he gets, let me go back to the chart, then maybe that boon that he gets in early November is the boon of being spared a yellow jumpsuit, as maybe this time then, with this Jupiter aspecting this early transit or entrance of Jupiter into Sagittarius. Oh, this is by day. Let me go by week. All of this stuff here, like again, once a Jupiter goes into Sagittarius, this will be, maybe it'll be that boon. And by the way, I also want to acknowledge, I know that the counter narrative that the people that are into the QAnon conspiracy think is that what's really going to happen, and by the way, this is a parallel, so let's see what happens. This will be a good case study, because these are the two competing theories. One is it's going to come out and Trump and what's been going on is going to be revealed. The other is Barr and Giuliani and Trump are now working to expose the deep state, and how Hillary and all this and Biden and they're all deep state. It's all been deep state to do this. And they're going to blow up some deep state conspiracy that is all going to come out. And Jupiter in Sagittarius with K2, it's going to show that. So that's going to be the thing. So it's either going to be that, or we're going to see this other truth come out. Like I said before, as Jupiter continues through Sagittarius and gets closer to K2, it's going to be drilling down more and more into the truth. So let's see what the truth is going to be. And I think what will happen is you'll see competing versions of the truth. The people that want to just say that it's all deep state conspiracy stuff and whatnot, you'll have that. You'll believe that's true and that they just railroaded Trump or whatever. So, we'll see what the real, deal is here. Oh, okay. So we got some people that are like, oh, here we go. This is I think I'm the clown that knows nothing. This whole thing has been initiated by satanic, crooked Democrats like Pelosi, who are short on adrenochrome. No, Trump is going to declassify all their dirt. Okay. So we have that going on too. There are people who think that. So there are people who think that it's all just deep state, and that I'm what am I again? Clown. Oh, okay. That's that. So you know what? That's fine. I mean, you know what, dude? You're entitled to your opinion. The things that are funny to me is you call yourself Michael C. My name is Sam Jeppy. That's my name. I wonder what your full name is. Same with the other person, In Full Bloom. How about you? Let's see your name. Like I see other people, Amy Eager. That's her name. There are other people. We show our face. How about you show your face, Michael C? That would be great. What's your actual name and what do you do? So again, these are the kinds of things. This is what's happening in the world now. And I don't mind your opinion. That's fine. But like I said a while ago, when I was talking about, so you said, I am Tanja. How about your full name? In Full Bloom. You're In Full Bloom. How about in full name? Like you say, my name. I'm out there, right up there saying it. You're hiding behind In Full Bloom, just like Michael C. In Full Bloom. I have all this courage behind my computer. I can say all kinds of stuff. No consequences. Deep state. Satanic. Okay, great. So this is what I said when Rahu goes into Gemini, we were going to start seeing the truth come out. And we have to start calling the truth like this. And again, if this is your version of truth and this is what you think is true, that's fine. Again, I account for that. I'm also saying that we're going to see the pressure applied to those conspiracy theories and those kinds of things that we just believe. And again, Michael C says, you choose to show your face. You choose. I have my choices right. I get it. Choices right. Choices right. Your choice to be an anonymous conspiracy theorizer, safe to call me a clown with no consequences. So again, that's fine. That's your choice. I'm just saying what the choice is. That's what the choice is that you make. So that's fine. That's your choice. And it's also relevant here. It's relevant because if that's such a powerful choice, maybe you wouldn't be so embarrassed about it because it's kind of an embarrassing choice. That's my view. But of course, I'm a clown. So what do I know? So anyway, wasn't planning on going there, but us clowns, you can't tell what we're going to do. We're a little crazy, us clowns. So anyway, someone said something that's very important, and that is pray for the Kurds. Oops. Trump and Putin is the devil. Well, I don't know about that. I don't like to say these kinds of things. I'm not, I don't like to get into that kind of language. I really don't, because I don't see it that way. The systems are corrupt. They attract corrupt people. They are all in. And the sad thing is, it's us human beings that are affected by it. So yes, pray for the Kurds. It's horrible. It's horrible that this is the world that we live in. And yes, we should pray for them. And by the way, anyway, guys, the thing about I'm actually having fun with people that come and say this stuff. It doesn't bother me. It really doesn't. But what's happening is us getting polarized against each other, fighting. The truth is, none of us really know all the complexities of any of this. Neither do I. This is why I'm saying I've been watching this stuff for a long time. Both sides are corrupt. The system is corrupt primarily. It attracts corrupt people. It will corrupt you even if you're a good person, because it's awash with money and corruption and all of it, and holding on to power. It's all true. But what's also objectively true is what we've seen in front of us as a president. And again, and his ability to do things like, again, his Jupiter retrograde in the second is absolutely his ability to take a term like fake news and hijack it and spin it and turn it into some conspiracy, deep state conspiracy now that all these people repeat. That's a skill that he has, and it's a formidable skill. Make no mistake about it, it's called a demagogue. He is an incredibly skilled demagogue. And Jupiter in the second is a big part of where he gets that skill. And we're all suffering the penalty for it, because it allowed him to get elected president. And when you're president, it's a different game. And you're going to be held account for what happens. And we can see these transits now holding him to account for that action that simply doesn't work in a democracy. It's a shame that he wasn't born in a place where he could be a king, because that's what he wants to be. But this happens to be a republic, a democracy. And the democracy so far is holding on. It might not. And it's true, it might not. Let's hope it does. I think it will. All right. So anyway, let's people saying that's why he's here. Yeah, I agree. That's why he's here. That's why all of this is here. Everything is toward a higher progress, including floating conspiracy theories and people demagoguing and stuff for a while. And then the truth comes out. And let's see what truth it is. Let's see if the truth is that it's QAnon and Pizzagate and Hillary and Deep State and all. Let's see if that's really what we all find out. And again, I don't trust, a 75-year-old demented Alzheimer patient and his corrupt cronies to be the ones that deliver this message of the future. I actually happen to think there is climate change. I think it's real. I don't think it was a hoax. I actually happen to realize that the Iran nuclear deal that we had in place was holding things in place. And now that Iran has exploded and this problem with Saudi Arabia is because Trump came and ripped it up just because he doesn't like Obama. And much of what Trump has done has no sense to it whatsoever. It's just a thin-skinned, immature person in a place that he doesn't belong. And he's in that place because he was able to get at least a certain amount of people to buy into all kinds of stuff like we now hear. So we'll see what happens after all of it. And, I mainly wanted to do this not to turn it into a political sideshow, which I guess I kind of knew it would at some point. But at this point, I'm just having to laugh about that too. Because, again, the point is these aspects by transit, I think, are really powerful. And you can really see the karma coming through with Trump. And we'll let it go at that. So, guys, have a good Sunday. I'm going to go play some tennis, and we'll see you soon.